Okay, in this video I'm going to try to show you how to multiply some complex numbers. So we're going to do it two different ways. So the first problem is 3 plus 5i, so that's a complex number. It has a real part, it has an imaginary part, and they're being added together. And then we're going to multiply that complex number by 2 minus 3i, which also has a real part, an imaginary part. They're being added, but in this case it looks like subtraction because the imaginary part is negative. So what we do is the first way will look like when you kind of multiply together, like x plus 5 and x minus 3 or something like that. So your teacher may have told you to FOIL those. I don't really say FOIL. I say distribute because that's the correct mathematical term. So I'm going to distribute. So 3 times 2 is going to give me a real number, so that's going to give me 6. And then I'm going to do 3 times negative 3i. That's actually going to give me an imaginary number because there's still going to be an I in it. So 3 times negative 3 is negative 9, and then an I. And then 5i times 2, that's going to be imaginary, so plus 10i. And then 5i times negative 3i. We haven't gotten this yet. So this is basically the same idea as multiplying 5x and negative 3x, which would give me negative 15x squared because of x times x. This is going to give me negative 15i squared. And now I have to remember what I squared is equal to. So I squared is equal to negative 1. So actually, although it doesn't look like it, that's actually a real number. So what I have is 6, and then plus I, and then negative 15 times negative 1, which we know is 15. So this is going to be 6 plus 15 is 21 plus I. So now I'm going to do it a different way. And this way is just going to be basically multiplying, right? Hopefully you remember how to multiply like 2 and 3-digit numbers. If you do, this is the exact method that we're going to use. So I set it up, and now I'm just going to take the whole thing on top, so 3 plus 5i. I'm going to multiply each part of that by negative 3i. So I'm going to do negative 3i times 5i to get negative 15i squared. Now I'm going to do negative 3i times 3, so minus 9i. And then 2 times 5i, and here I'm lining it up so that things kind of go together, right? So I guess my first column on the right is my I squared column. Now I'm in my I column, and now I'm going to do 2 times 3, which gives me 6. I always try to put, at least for everything that's in a column to the right, so not the leftmost, I always try to put a sign with it, so the minus sign or the plus sign, just so it kind of makes sense. And now I just kind of add down. So negative 15i squared is 15, because it's negative 15 times negative 1, which is positive 15. And then you collect terms there, you get positive I, and then 6, and then this will give me 21 plus I. So either way you want to do it, you're going to get the same answer. Let's try one more. So we have this. First I'm going to do it by multiplication. So set it up. So I'm going to do 4i times 5i is plus 20i squared. 4i times 8 is plus 32i. Now I'm going to do 3 times 5i, which is 15i, and then 3 times 8, which is 24. And then I just bring things down. So 20i squared is 20 times negative 1, so my negative 20. And then it's going to be 37i, and then 24. And then that finally is 4 plus 37i. Now I'll do it the other way, just to show you that it always works. And you're free to do it either way you want. It doesn't really matter. So here I'm going to have 8 times 3, which is 24. And 8 times 4i, which is 32i. This way actually, like, kind of is a little easier maybe, but that could be that I learned to do it this way, so I think it's easier. And then 5i times 3 is 15i, and 5i times 4i is going to be 20i squared, and then remember I squared is negative 1. That's one of the most important things you can remember at this point, I guess. So we're going to get minus 20 there, and then that's 4 plus 37i. So same answer either way. I want to do one more thing, which is going to look a little crazy. I'm going to actually multiply these, and I'm going to do it kind of the multiplication way, and you'll see spacing becomes kind of an issue. But you want to set it up initially like this. So I'm going to go through and multiply everything in the top row by negative I, then everything in the top row by negative 3, then everything in the top row by x, and then just collect like terms. And this one's kind of interesting, so let's do that. So I get minus I squared, which again, I squared is negative 1. I get minus, or rather plus 3i, because negative I times negative 3. And then minus ix, So that's like a weird term, I times x. I'm going to hope that goes away. Now I get minus 3i, so I'm lining things up. Plus 9, because there's no ix term this time. So I started a new column. And then minus 3x, which again, I started a new column because I didn't have anything, so 3 is a real number, and I is obviously imaginary. So I started a new column because the ix and the minus 3x they're not the same. And finally, I get an I times x. So if you look, we have a minus ix and a plus ix, so those are going to cancel. And then a minus 3x again, and then a plus x squared. So if I collect like terms, I get this, and finally, I get that. Now what's interesting is if you set that equal to 0 and use a quadratic formula to find the zeros, what you're going to end up getting is 3 plus I and 3 minus I, and that's very related to the problem that we just did, so you should probably try that and see if you can figure out what I'm talking about. Anyway, hope you found this helpful, and good luck.